Hey, this is Andrew Brown, and welcome to the AWS Cloud Project Bootcamp as we continue on to week 8. This is a follow-up video after working with Christy, getting this project started and getting a overview of CDK. So what we'll need here is to have like a week again, and we will have to branch from week 6 again. This is what I'm doing. You work in your main. And Christy has done work on this repo, so I'm going to go first. I'm going to branch from my week 6 scan branch, and then we're going to merge her work into my repository so we can leave off where we last were during the live stream. So I'll go over here. I always like showing this just if you ever needed to know how to do branching and stuff, but again, it's not something I'm asking or wanting you to do. But we'll go down here to week 6 again, and I'm going to type in week 8 again, as that is what we were doing here. I'll create that branch. And so the next thing I need to do is create a pull request. So I'll do a pull request here, and we'll make a new one. And so I should be able to go across forks here. There's a little button or link here to go across forks, which is really useful. And so here I'm looking for Christy's repo. And so there is Christy's repo, and I can drop it down. And she was working in week 8 again. And so I'll merge this one into my week 8 again. Now, these are great skills to have, especially when you're collaborating with other people. So hopefully that makes a whole lot of sense. So I'm going to go all the way to the top here, and I'm going to create this pull request. And I'm going to say class changes. So bring in Christy's changes, so we can continue on with CDK and serverless pipeline. There we go. I think that's all spelled correctly. So we'll go ahead and create that pull request. We will create that, give it a moment. We'll merge that pull request. We'll save that. And then the next thing will be to go ahead and launch Git pod. Now, I was working ahead of this, so I have some stuff that shouldn't be here already. So what I'm going to do is just go over to my CloudFormation, because this is what I was doing before. And so I'm going to get into a state that matches where you are, which is I already have this, which is the done version of it. So I'll go ahead and delete that stack. Again, you don't have to do this. I'm just trying to revert it into a place that is similar to yours. So I'll wait a little while there. And this is getting launched up. And what also I'll do is go ahead and open up the instructions for week 6. So those will be under week 6. And I tried to make week 6, I keep saying week 6, week 8 serverless CDK. I tried to make it as easy as possible so that students have more time to catch up. And I mean, it's not intended to be hard in general, but I definitely put a little bit more work in this time for sure. So we'll go into week 8 here. And so we can see that we have a lot more instructions than usual. The only thing that's missing here is the Lambda implementation. It's in the code base here. It's just not here in the journaling. But what I'm going to do is go back over here. I'm going to close this little tab out here. And we can go take a look at the state of our application. This doesn't look right because we're missing the backend. So I must have launched it in the wrong one here. And I do that sometimes. So I'm just going to go stop this workplace. I'm going to go back over to my repo here. Whoops, this one here. And we'll make sure we go to week 8 again. I mean me, not you. And we'll go ahead and launch that again. And so now it should be in the state that Christy had it in. So we'll just wait a moment here. We'll take a look here, see if that was deleted. It failed. Sometimes these fail because there are resources that you have to manually delete. So it's probably failing here because of the bucket. Again, this is not something that you would be dealing with right away, but at some point you will. So failed resources because the bucket probably exists. Normally, this is a new view, so I'm not used to looking at CloudFormation like this, but normally it will tell us why under events. Here we go. So, and this is something we'll learn more when we do CloudFormation, but the bucket you try to delete is not empty. And so that's the problem there. That's why I won't delete. So I'm going to go over to S3. And we'll wait a moment here. And I will go ahead and this is the bucket. So I'll go there and I'll say empty it. We'll just permanently delete. And so now I'm going to go back over to CloudFormation. And now it should take. So go ahead and delete that, and we'll say delete. Well, here it says you may retain resources that are failing to delete. So that means that it would not actually delete them and just skip over it. We actually don't want to do that. I'm going to hit delete stack. So sometimes that option helps because then it will basically disconnect those resources that are being troublesome, but you don't necessarily want to do that. But anyway, now that stack is gone, so we can get back to the state that we were in. And so what I'm going to do here is just type in clear. And so we have the thumbing serverless CDK. So what we did do in class is we set up the bootstrap. And so you will see this CDK toolkit there that has some stuff that it's made that it needs to work with CDK. How this works, I'm not 100% sure, but it does something and it's useful for something. And I really don't think it's going to occur any kind of cost. So I'm not too worried about it. And the last thing that we did was, well, we were working on the Lambda, but we already had that S3 bucket there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into that CDK directory. So I'll go into thumbing serverless. I actually just noticed that it did not create another tab here. So I think when we're working with Christina, we did not, or Christy, sorry, I said Christina. Christy, we did not add an additional git pod YAML here. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So over in our instructions, if we scroll on down, we have this where we're going to add CDK. So I'll go ahead and copy that in, and I'll go down a line, and then we'll go ahead and paste that in. And so that way, when we start up our environment next time, it will always be installed. So I'll just make a new tab here. I will bump up my font. And I'll go over here for a second, sorry. Font. Say 20. What? Font family. Oh, I did not mean to change it. We'll go back to, I don't know, Arial. What was it? Arial? That's what it is now. No, that's no good. We'll just take that out. And I guess the font's already 20 here, so that's okay. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure this font was larger, and it still isn't. So I'll try this one more time. Font size, 20. There we go. That's a lot better. Yeah, and we'll proceed here to install CDK. And actually, those instructions are wrong. It's not AWS CDK lib, it's just AWS CDK. So what I'll do is I'll go correct that because that's the library that we actually use. It's not the CLI tool. So I'll just make that small adjustment there so you don't have to deal with that. And I'm going to go back to my git pod YAML here as such. And so now we can go ahead and install it correctly. And so that will install the CLI. We'll type in CDK to make sure that it's working. Very good. I'm going to cd into the thumbing directory or thumbing serverless. And here, what I'm going to do is type in CDK deploy. Type in clear here. CDK deploy. And I have an error. So why do I have an error? I did not expect us to have this many troubleshooting issues, but I'm in a state that it's a bit different. So it says here, cannot find module AWS CDK lib. The reason why is that we need to do an npm install in that directory as well. So what I'm going to do is update this further. So I'm going to go cd thumbing serverless CDK. Actually, I don't want to spell that wrong. So I'll just copy the name, rename, copy, and we'll paste that in there. And then we'll just do an npm install. And I'll just do npm install here, and that will resolve that issue. We'll give it a little bit of time. I'll be back here when that is finished, okay? And less than 30 seconds, and it's done. So now let's go ahead and try to do CDK deploy again. And I mean, again, I'm just doing this to get back into the state that you're in. You don't necessarily need to do this, but some of it you do, because of course you'll want this here. And so it says the path argument must be the type of string undefined. So in here we have the .env file, and the thing is that that is in our git ignore file. So if we go over here, it's added in here because we added it before when we had the Docker compose. So the idea is that we want this to persist, and so what I'm going to do is call this .example. Okay, so we have an example one, And then in here, what we can do is include our nvars. So what nvars do we need? Well, if we go over to our code base here, for the serverless image processing, it should show us somewhere here for our nvars. Nvars. Down below here. Not sure why it's so far down, but these are all the environment variables we'll be loading. So what I want you to do is just copy this part here, and we will go back over to our code into lib, plumbing serverless, and you can see that we started putting them in here. So normally what I would do is I would add these as we go, but because I want to get this nvar all set up in good shape, we're just going to paste it in here and get it out of the way. We're going to put this logging here just so that we know that these are being set correctly. But these are all the nvars that we need. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. I'm going to go over here and paste this in here. And then I'm going to take out the rest of these lines. Okay, and then what I can do is just do this. And then these are all the things we need to define. So I'm not sure if we're going to change that webhook URL implementation, but for now we're going to be using SNS. We need a bucket name. I'm calling mine Crutter assets because that's where I'm going to store all my assets. You can call it whatever you like, but you can't have it the same name as mine because these are like domain names. They have to be globally available. This name's not going to be seen by anyone other than what we are doing here. Actually, technically, since we're going to be serving these via CloudFormation, they actually do need to be named a particular way now that I'm thinking about it. And so what we're actually going to do is name this based on our domain. So I want my assets to be served at assets.crutter.com, and so you'll have to do the same thing. So whatever your domain name is, put assets in front of it, and that's what we'll actually do now that I think about it. The input folder here is going to be avatar original. The reason we aren't just putting the folder original here is because if we have avatar, then we can have other folders for other things because we want to use this bucket for other assets as well. And so we'll do that. So we'll have processed. In the webhook URL, this is going to be api.crutter.com/webhooks. And then we'll say avatar. Now the question is, will we end up changing this or not using webhook at all? I don't know, but right now in my head, in terms of the design, I think that's what I want to do. We need a topic name, so that's going to be the actual topic that will send out the SNS. This name is not so important. You can name it Crutter Assets. It's not like global like this one up here. Thumbing function path. So this is the absolute path to where we're going to be placing our Lambda function. And so we're going to be placing it in here. If we go over to the original code base here, I'm just going to go to the top and open it up like that. Again, this isn't in the journaling, so that's why I'm opening up this way. I'm going to go all the way down to week 8 serverless CDK, and we are going to go into AWS and into Lambdas, and you'll see there's a folder here called process images. And so that's what I'm going to do is create the folder here called process images. Now, when we were talking to Christy, she was saying the way that she organizes her projects is usually in the context of where that stuff is. So if this is what's using that Lambda function, we could have had that source directory or called it AWS, whatever you want, and had it in there. I'm not sure if I want to organize it that way, but I am thinking that the fact that we're putting everything in here and it's not always clear what project they belong to. So maybe we will evolve this structure as we did with the bin directory, but for now I'm going to leave them up here and make that decision later. Often that's how it is when working in projects. You do something one way and then you decide later on down the road it might be better, or you might just find out it's just a different way of doing it and it doesn't matter. I don't know at this point. But anyway, we're going to have the that folder there, and so that's the directory that we need to specify. So what I'm going to do is just make a new tab here, and I'm going to just cd all the way into there, and then what I'll do is just copy this URL here. It makes it a lot easier. I mean, it's going to be the same for all of yours if you've named this correctly, and that's why it was so important for you to name the GitHub project that way. But anyway, so now these are all set and that's out of the way. And it is .env example. We would have to copy that file and turn it into an env. So I'm going to do just cp .env example to env. There's nothing that's really sensitive in here, so I'm not really worried about making the example data filled with that stuff. If there was sensitive data or very specific data, I would probably change that stuff out. But since this project's only the scope of hours, I don't see any reason for changing that. So maybe we'll change that down the road, but for the time being, that is fine. And so that will put the example file where we need it to be. I'm going to just copy this line here, and we're going to go down here and then paste it in like that. I'm going to hit up and hit deploy. And so now it should load those environment variables. It should print them out. And so we have an error here, cannot find assets this source path. So that is one error. It's talking about the code itself. So if we go back over to here, into the Lambda function, we said that we need to get code from here, from the function path. And the function path is this location. And so as far as I understand it, it's looking for all the contents in here. Right now we have nothing in there, so therefore there is no source code for it to grab. So let's go back over to our process images, and we really just want to copy the contents here. So the first is we want the index.js, and so I'll go ahead and grab this code. I don't really want to go through the great detail of writing lambdas, as we've already made a couple here, so you're getting the idea of how this works. So let's just quickly read through it. So the idea is that we have the handler, and that's the entry point into the Lambda. I'm logging out the event data. We may or may not want to do this, but I think it's okay to do that. But that will show us the structure of the data that's coming in. This structure is predefined by the S3 event notification. So in S3, if I go over to here, and we check out our buckets, because this is what we're going to do, and I'm going to just show you without actually clicking through and doing it. But if we go into any bucket, so this is one we made for the access logs. I never got it working, but I think a student said that it did eat up their free tier for S3, which I was surprised, but maybe they had something on their CloudTrail that caused that. But if we go over to properties maybe, and we scroll on down below, there'll be a thing called event notifications. And as far as I understand, this is using CloudWatch events underneath, but it's just another abstraction to make it easier. Of course, right underneath it's EventBridge. So you can do the same thing with event notifications with EventBridge, but this one is just easier to use. So if I create an event notification, I can go here and say, what do I want the event name to be? So I could say inputted original image, avatar, whatever it would be. And it says, okay, limit the notifications to objects with the keys starting with the specified character prefix. So we have the options of saying the prefix and the suffix when we're trying to limit those things. And that's important because you have to design your folder structure based on that. So we said that this would be avatar and then original. So for this case, the prefix is definitely avatar, and then it's also original, right? If we wanted to limit further, we could just say JPGs or what have you. But there is a limit to what you can do. You don't have exactly regex in here, but you have some control. Then we can choose what type of events we want. So we can do it on the put, the post, things like that. And so I'm pretty sure it's going to be the put and not post. Well, we'll look at the code, but it's either put or post. So one is, traditionally put means updating an existing one, and posting is replacing another one. So we may need both or just a single one there. We'll find out in terms of our implementation. I do one or the other, it's post or put, because often we're not going to have the exact same name and update the one in place. But these are the things that we can react to. And then down below, you can say it's destination. So Lambda function, SNS, SQS, and then choose the Lambda. So we're obviously going to send that to the Lambda. And then the other case, we're going to send it to an SNS topic. So hopefully that is very clear in terms of how that's going to work. And I just realized this is super small, so I apologize for not bumping it up sooner. But we have a lot of options. But the question is, what does the event data look like when you pass it along? And so what I did is I just asked ChatGPT. And that was actually one case where it was very useful. So if I just go and log into ChatGPT here, I could say, like, what is when triggering an event, an S3 event notification to a Lambda, what would the event data look like for a put object, right? And so, and put and post, they're very similar, but they're showing us the structure. And this has always been something that's kind of been a pain when building up Lambdas and integrating, is just trying to find this information. Now, this is probably based on CloudTrail. So we go CloudTrail events S3. And here in the documentation, we can probably find it. So if I go down below here and try to find it, create bucket, get bucket. I'm looking for a put. I'm wondering if it would show it here. I mean, these just look like the actions. I actually want object. CloudTrail events. Well, let's just click in any of these just to see if it shows us any data. Because I'm looking for the, well, here's a get object, right? So if I go into here, does it show me the structure? And this is kind of what I mean, where it's kind of hard to find out what the responses are. So cloud, or we could say CloudWatch events. I said CloudTrail, but I should say CloudWatch events S3 put object. The reason I said CloudTrail is because you see structure in there as well, and so I was getting mixed up. But I mean, we are seeing structure here, but this isn't very useful. So my point is that it is somewhere. And I am able to find it after some time, but my point is that now I can just ask ChatGPT and it's pretty good and I can see the structure. So the idea is that it will return back records. And then down below here, we can see S3, we can see its bucket name, we can see the object itself. And so that's the information we're looking for. So we go back over to our function, which is here. And so we can see record 0, S3, bucket.name. We just saw that. And then we can see record 0, S3, object key. I don't think that it would pass multiple records in this case. It'd just be a single record because I don't think it would batch in this case. Batch meaning doing more than one. Maybe that would be like buffering or multi-part upload where it would have more than one part. But anyway, here we can see it gets the source key. And so we print those out to debug it. All we're doing here is replacing the folder input with the folder output. So the idea is that we will get back the target. So it'll say, this key will say that it's in avatar original, it still looks wrong, but that's okay. Data.jpg, and all it's going to do is replace the folder input, which is original, with output, so then it'll be processed. And so that will be how it knows where to go. And then it will again find the original image, and then it will pass it on to the processing image, and then it will upload it. And so I abstracted this up into a class. Now you could have put all of the code in here, and originally I did that, but then I realized that I needed some way to easily test this. And so by abstracting it up into this own file, I was able to make a test file. And so that's what I did. So we'll go here and make the test file. And we will go back. Okay, and so this is very similar to the other one. It's just that we're hard coding the values so that we have more control over what's happening. We can rule out any kind of like event data issues. But let's go ahead and then actually grab the processing file. And the nice part about having this as an isolate file is that if you want to write test code for it, it's a lot easier than actually in the Lambda. We'll go here and say S3, what do we call it? Image processing JS. We'll go ahead and paste that in. Great. And so here we are using the AWS SDK client S3. I actually originally tried to ask ChatGPT to generate this out for me. It got it wrong because it wasn't pulling code from the latest version of the Node.js SDK. And since we're using the latest runtime, Node 18, we should really use the latest SDK as well. And so the syntax was slightly different. The hardest part when dealing with images is working with buffers and streams, especially Node.js. It's quite the headache. There's like 10 different ways that they say you can do it, and I got a way of it to work. I'm not saying it's the best way, but it is a way to do it. When you're working with images or even files or assets to Lambda, we are doing just a one-off upload, but we could be doing a multi-part upload. Lambda now supports streaming, so we could technically stream data, maybe not to, but from Lambda. So there's definitely a lot more stuff that we could do with this, but this is going to work for our use case, at least for now. So up here, we are going to get the client, and then the other ones require the client to work. And so this is written in a very stateless way. The idea is that we do not want to instantiate an object. We want to have stateless functions and pass in the inputs and outputs. It makes it so much easier for testing. If we were doing testing, I could show you, but we're not doing much testing or any testing at all here. But anyway, so the idea is that we generate out our client up here. We pass it in into the original one where it grabs it. Seems like it would need it in this one here, upload process time. So if we go back to our code, how would it work if it didn't have the client here? So here, yeah, that looks like a bug. So what we'll do here is just put client in here as well. That's weird because it worked for me. I'll just type in client as such here. And so that way we can pass it in here and it will upload in that case. But yeah, this is the way we can do exports. There is, we could actually also just type in exports, get client equals whatever. But this is the way I prefer to do it. So there's a few different ways to define that syntax, but you know, lots of different ways. I chose Sharp because I know that it's a small library. I did not have to set up Lambda layers. Image processing can be quite the pain in other languages. I think in Rust it's probably pretty easy, but in Ruby and Python and a host of others, it's quite painful. So this was the implementation that I liked using, even though I had to work through promises, which was a bit of a headache. Anyway, we'll go back over here, and so we do need to install a couple of things. I'm just looking for the code here because we have that package JSON. I'm going to also grab the example JSON. This is just data that was outputted by ChatGPT, or maybe it was what I consoled out and copied later on, but I'm just going to put this in here and call it example JSON, just so that we can see this data structure, because I always feel like I'm coming back here and referencing it. And so you can see I was doing it on a put. We might want to do it on a post. So this could be wrong, but we will figure this out later, okay? So anyway, we have that there, and then we need our package.json. So I'm just going to type in clear down below here, and I'm going to cd into that directory, the lambdas process image. I'm just going to type in npm init-y. That will create an empty init file in here for us. And there is a couple things we want to install. The first thing will be npm install sharp.js, I believe it is. Whoops. Make sure you type it correctly, because there are so many junk libraries out there that you could end up installing it by accident. Apparently, I did install it. That's good. I'm going to double check to make sure that is the library, because again, it's just Node.js. I really don't trust it. This is week 8 again. This is the one we want here. So we'll go here and into package.json. So see, it's just called sharp. So already I've made a mistake. So what I'll do here is delete out my node modules, delete permanently, and I'll just remove that there. Again, you got to be really careful how you install this stuff. Now I'm kind of paranoid. I'm gonna look it up. Sharp JS, and so npm sharp. Okay. So yeah, just watch out for those kind of packages. That's a great way to get stuff compromised, installing a package that's very similar in name. So sharp is there. We also need to have the SDK installed in order to work with it locally. Now, technically, when you have runtimes for these libraries, or runtimes for Lambda, they'll already have the SDK installed. However, Node.js, they install their packages in a folder in here. So like if we were using Ruby, we wouldn't have to even use a gem file, install packages, and it wouldn't dump them all in here in line. But with Node.js, unfortunately, we do have to include it. So it's like we're double installing it, even though it's not needed. I don't know a way of removing it. The reason why that's important is that there is a limit in terms of the size. At least there was like 100 megabyte limit or something of the size when doing zip uploads to Lambda. And so you do have to be cautious of that size unless you want to build your own containers, which I don't feel like doing. I want to keep this as simple as possible. But I don't think that's a big deal here. So what we are going to do here is just go back over here and look at what it was. So we are just including the AWS SDK client S3. So we'll do npm install this. Now, if you notice, there's this @ AWS SDK / client S3. So the reason it's like that is that the SDK library is broken up into a bunch of sub packages. Or isolate packages, so you can install exactly what you want. Most of the SDK has been doing that, so Ruby was probably one of the first ones to do it. Node.js is obviously doing it now, but there are some other ones where you might install everything wholesale, or you might have to install them individually. Individually is obviously better because it should result in a smaller footprint. So we now have those two requirements. We do have that S3 bucket up, or at least I was trying to deploy it. Did it actually work? Did we actually do that? Because I didn't see the folder there. So maybe what I should do at this point is, I thought we did a CDK deploy. So I'm going to go over here to CloudFormation. Maybe it failed, or maybe I actually didn't hit enter, or maybe we had an error. I forget. So I don't see it there. So I'm just going to do that again. I think it was over here. And maybe not there. I guess it doesn't matter. We'll just CD back into it. Thumbing CDK deploy. And we'll see if we get an error. Now we could be running that CDK. Oh, we got an error because this Lambda code wasn't here. That's right. But now what error do we have now? So cannot find asset at this .source path. And we're just printing out this to say where this is. This is process image, where this is process images. Well, what did we do originally in the code? It's called process images. So I'm going to go to my environment variables here. I'm going to go ahead and add that extra letter. So I guess I must have just accidentally forgot to copy it. Before we do anything else, I notice this 3K plus here. It's because it's adding that node modules in there. Let's get rid of that by putting node modules in here. We really don't need node modules in here. And then we'll go up here. And now it's all shrunk. So that's all we had to do there. We'll go ahead and try this again. We could try that CDK synth, which was what, which was something that I noticed Christy was doing quite a bit of. When I was building this out, I didn't really do it that much, and I was doing that okay. But I guess if you're working on very complex projects, or you're just used to checking this thoroughly, you'll be sure to see what it's actually doing. So yeah, no complaints there. I don't know if it would have complained if we had a problem for our source code, but we'll go ahead and do CDK deploy. Okay, and so it is showing us what it's going to change beforehand. So let's take a look here. This deployment will make potentially sensitive changes according to your current security approval level. So this looks okay. It's not telling us about what's changing, but it's just telling us that there's this security warning here, and that's totally fine. I'm going to hit yes for that, and we'll go ahead and deploy that Lambda. So right now we have the Lambda, but it's not really going to work until we hook up the S3 event notifications. We can continually to change this to see what happens. It might be interesting to do that to see if we can cause anything to break and then troubleshoot it. In reality, we could just finish this whole implementation and not do any of this, and it'd be a lot easier. But, you know, I'm trying to expose any kind of additional troubleshooting that might be of value to you. So it's going to go ahead and set those things up. And so I'll be back here when this is done, okay? All right, so that was actually quite quick. So let's take a look at the resources that were deployed. I'm back here in CloudFormation. We'll click into here. We'll go to resources. We'll give it a refresh. And now we can see our Lambda. So let's go take a look at that Lambda. Let's open this a new tab so we don't have to keep closing that. So we'll go and type in Lambda here. And here we have our thumbing function. Notice it added a bunch of stuff there to the front. That is totally fine. So we'll go back over there. And we'll just take a look here. So it shows the package size to be 10.9 megabytes. If we look at the function overview, we can see that the code is here. Notice that there aren't any trigger or destination. So the idea is that the trigger is going to be S3. We're not actually going to set this up, but I'm just showing you that if you had that, it would watch on certain stuff. Very similar to the form before. I don't know if this would create an S3 event notification or if it would create an event bridge / CloudWatch event. When I say event bridge and CloudWatch events, it's the same thing. They just renamed the product and added more stuff to it. But the destination would go back into the bucket, and so we'd have S3. Well, it's not showing it exactly. I guess it'd have to go to event bridge first and then back. So maybe it would go to an event bridge bus and then into S3. I don't know. We'll see here in a moment, I suppose. The point is that we need to hook up those parts to it. Let's go to configuration. Can we look at our code in the state? I don't think that we should. If we go to, where's our code? Oh, here, sorry. And so notice that the deployment package was sent is too large for inline editing. So just understand that's the reason for that. It's possible that we could have done that inline. It might have fit despite this error here, but the point is that it's been uploaded like basically in a zip probably, or it's gone to S3 and then imported. So it's just not going to show that information, even though it's not that large. We could have installed Sharp via Lambda layers, but it's a lot easier to do this this way. This actually won't work because when you use Sharp, you actually have to build it in a very particular way for deployment. So if you go over to the instructions, they actually have one for Lambda here. And so what they say is do npm install and then remove the Sharp directory and then use these build flags. And so that's what we actually have to do. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and do that right now so I don't forget. But yeah, it's something we have to do. So go here and type in npm install. And we'll do this, run that, and then we'll run that. Just so we don't forget about this, I'm going to copy these 3 lines. And I'm going to go over to our bin directory here. And we'll just say new file, new folder, serverless. Build here, and we'll paste this in. And I'll go ahead and just grab the bin bash from anywhere. And then we need to do this in a particular directory. So I'm just trying to think where we might have this, something like this. Copy that, bring this over, paste that in. And so this absolute link would be here. The next would be the serverless path, serverless path. So that would be here. That would get us to the bin path. This would get us to the project path. And then here we go into the serverless project path. This is going to be called thumbing. I don't want to name this incorrectly, so I'm going to just rename this like that. And we'll go ahead and paste that in like that. It looked like one of them was lowercase, so that's why I retyped that. And so now the idea is that we can just CD into there. Or not CD into there, but we need to execute them in that context. How do we do it for the other one? We're just passing them in. The problem is if we put CD in here, then it will actually put us in that directory. So how can we execute commands in another folder in a bash script? but that'll change the directory. Yeah, well, we'll try it out and we'll see what happens, but I'm pretty sure that it will actually make us jump to that other folder, and that's not necessarily what we want to do permanently. We want to stay where we are, but we'll try it anyway. So I'll go here and I'll just go back. So I'll say bin, well, we'll chmod it first. Bin serverless build. Oh, it didn't. Okay, so that was actually perfect. It worked exactly the way we want it to work, and I thought it was going to actually CD us in there from here. But we'll have that script around so that we don't forget how to do that. Anyway, we need to move on to the next part of the implementation. So we'll go back down below here. And so the next thing that we need, if we go here, is we have our S3 bucket. We already did bootstrapping. We have our nvars loaded. We've created our bucket. We've set up our Lambda. We need to set up the SNS topic. We do need the SNS topic, but we don't need it right away. What we do need is the input. So let's focus on the input first. Create an S3 event notification to SNS. That's fine. So let's focus on hooking up the bucket to Lambda. So here it says create an S3 event notification to Lambda. That's what we want. So what we have here is the actual call to it. So I'll go ahead and copy that, and we'll make our way back over to here, and I will paste it in below here. And apparently Lambda spelled wrong. I don't know how my code was working before, but it was. Maybe it was spelled incorrectly everywhere. And so it's expecting this function to exist, which is fair because we've yet to copy and paste it in. And we'll go ahead and go down here and paste that in. Here it's asking for S3N. So I guess I didn't include that in the line there. These are pretty easy to figure out. So if I want S3N, then we go here and just type in S3 notifications. That looks right to me. So it's not exactly the same, but it's pretty close. And so what this is going to do is create that Lambda destination. And so, it's going to pass in the Lambda and the bucket and the prefix, because the prefix we need to know where it needs to go. So the way this works is it says add event notification on the put type, and then the destination is here. The confusion here is the indentation. So if I do this, that makes it a lot more clear. I'm just going to do that. That's a lot better. But anyway, sorry. So we've created a destination up here, and then we're passing the destination into the S3 event notification. And then the prefix here is going to be where it goes, which will be like the original folder here. Original folder image. Okay. And so that's all that does there. So that should establish that connection. I'm going to go up here. And so we have our folder input. That's fine. Lambda bucket. Yeah, so that looks good. So what we'll do is go ahead and write CDK synth. Oh, we're in the wrong directory here. So we'll type in this and then do CDK synth again. Even though it's like only 4 letters, I'm finding it extremely difficult to spell that. SYNTH synth. And let's take a look at what it's trying to do. And this might be easier to read if it was in YAML format. So what I'm going to do here is go here. Copy it. I'm just going to make a new file temporarily here. Test.yaml. I'm just going to put it at the root here. I just want to remember to delete it later, so I'm just going to do test.yaml here. Again, try not to leave these files hanging around. When I'm grading, I want to make sure you try to keep these things clean. But anyways, this is a lot easier to read, but there's a lot of stuff going on here. So what is all this stuff? So it looks like it actually adds another lambda. So let's go here. So we have our bucket. We have our delete policy, our metadata, which seems to be on every single resource here. It creates a S3 bucket notification. It's selecting it as put. It's putting the filter rules as prefix and original. This is the same stuff we saw in the console, right? And then here it's grabbing the lambda, so based on the name of its ARN. So see how it's referencing this logical name? So that's why the logical names matter. If we search this down below, there it is. So that's the whole purpose of logical names, what I was talking about earlier. But what's interesting here is if we scroll on down, there's this stuff. So there's actually another lambda that it's creating here. So remember when we were looking at the destinations and there was no destination to S3, it was like CloudWatch event or SQS or SNS. So probably what it's doing is it needs an intermediate lambda to get back to the bucket is probably what's happening there. So that'll be interesting when we provision that up. I'm gonna go ahead and just delete this. But I thought it'd be useful to kind of dig through that. And so now we'll go ahead and type in CDK deploy. Hopefully it just works. And we'll tell it yes. And we'll be back here in a moment, okay? All right, so after a minute deployed, notice it says creating CloudFormation change set here. I did try to look up if you could actually do manual confirmation of change sets. So manual change sets CDK. And it looks like that there is an open ticket for it. So I'm imagining that this isn't done. Because if there's an open ticket, then it's not done. And so I'm not sure if there's any way to do it. So it'd be great to have this feature and be able to use a combination of no execute change set. Change sets are basically, they say what is going to be changed before they happen. And so that way you can have a manual review step in your pipeline. And so if you need that and CDK does not provide that, that might be a problem, or you might have to have some kind of workaround to that. So I thought they would have had change sets in there, manual reviews, but if they don't, that's surprising. Anyway, so now that this is done, we'll go back over here and we'll give this a refresh. And now you can see that we have this bucket notifications. And underneath it's had to deploy a lambda, and then we have this role with some permissions. Let's go take a look at that. We'll go over here, refresh the page here. I guess we have to do a hard refresh. And so now what we'll see is we should see a destination. So actually, oh, sorry, a trigger, not a destination. So here we have a trigger into S3 here. We'll click onto it, and so we'll take a look at some of the details. This one says Crutter thumbs as the bucket ARN, but our bucket's not called that. So maybe I have some old code in here that's hard-coded. Let me take a look. Why would it have done thumbs? That's totally wrong for sure, for me. Because remember, we changed our bucket name over here to be assets dot whatever your domain is, not mine, but whatever yours is. So it might be part of the code that's doing that. Let's go back to here. That's in our file here. Let's just search for that, thumbs. Thumbs. Okay, we'll go back over here. Yeah, that's not right. That's not right. We'll go down below here, and so there's a bucket here. Huh. Let's go back over here. What's the name of the bucket in our actual CloudFormation template? Oh, it's called thumbs. Interesting. So maybe when we're doing an update, it's not replacing that bucket, right? So we created it, then I renamed the bucket, and that's not correct. So I think what I'll do is tear down this entire stack. So I guess I thought it would have just deleted the old bucket and made a new one, but I guess not. So we will go and do a CDK destroy. And that's the equivalent of pretty much deleting the CloudFormation template. But the thing is, if you have multiple stacks, that might not be the best way to do it. So we'll hit yes and tear that down. So it's a good thing we're double, triple checking our resources to make sure they are what we think they are. But yeah, if we were working with CloudFormation, we would have not had that problem because we don't have another level of abstraction to worry about whether that worked or not. Or we would have saw it in the change set, right? So we could have went there and saw it. I suppose what we could have done is gone to the change set and looked at it. But we'll look at that in the future, okay? So let's say CDK deploy. And we'll give this a go again. We might have to confirm a yes. Nope, it's just going. Oh, yeah, hit Y, and there we go. All right, so after a short little wait here, the deploy is done. We'll go back over here. We'll give this a refresh. We'll take a look at what we have. And so in here, we now have this function here. This is the one that should have the trigger. Let's go back. Let's click on the other one. Oh, okay. Let's make our way over to CloudFormation here. I'm a little bit confused. I was expecting to see something else. We'll go over to our resources, and there's the thumb lambda, and so that's the one we're looking for. Sometimes they're named very similarly, so these two look similar to me, but this is the one that we want. So just close out this other tab. Ah, here it is. Okay, great. So we'll click on this and we'll go look at the triggers. And it's still showing crudder thumbs as the yarn. That is really frustrating. Why is it doing that? It should not be doing that. All I can think of is there some kind of metadata that it's holding on to, because this is not going to work if it's set the yarn as this. Let's go take a look at that bucket. Let's see what bucket it actually created. Maybe it didn't even create the bucket we want. Maybe it's our environment variables that is wrong. Or it could be that I have them set in my environment. So let's go take a look here at S3. And it's still making this bucket. All right, I think I know what it is. I think it's specific to my environment. And if I type in env grep thumbing, what do I have here? I have buckets set. So what I'm going to do is just get rid of this one here. I think before, originally when I was making this, I was just having that name, and then I ended up adding all those other envars and then decided to put env in here. So we'll just say unset thumbing, and we'll say gp env. I'm not sure how to get rid of that way, so I'm going to go to getpod.io here, and I'm going to just delete it out because I don't know how else I'm going to unset that. So we'll go to user settings, and then I'll go into my variables. I'm looking for thumbing, so thumb bucket, and we'll just delete that out, delete it. I don't like that it shows it to you before you delete it. You really shouldn't. Oh, no, it's just in the scope. Never mind. I thought it was showing the value. That's fine. So that should fix that issue. If we go and check this again, is it still there? This one is, so I'll just make sure we unset that one. Great. And so now this should resolve my issue. Now the question is, if I do a deploy, what is it going to say? Is it going to pick up the new bucket name, and what will it do? So I'm going to go ahead and do a CDK deploy. This is a great opportunity to check out the change sets and see what happens. So we'll go here, and it's going to say it's going to change something. And it's going. So we'll wait a little while here, and I'll be back, okay? All right, let's go take a look at that bucket and see what shape it's in. So we'll go and refresh here. Refresh here. And so now if we go here, now it's the name that we want it to be. Let's go take a look and see if we have any change sets in, data here. So it will show our last executed one, and the idea is it will show if it's modified or stuff like that. This is kind of important if you know, like you want to see what actually has changed. It's not showing in great detail what is changing, at least Not from I can tell, but at least you have a general idea of what's happening. Now, this S3 bucket is kind of really important. The data is very important. We don't want it to be destroyed. We do have that destroy policy in there, but sometimes when you have these kind of things, you might not want them managed by this stack directly. You might want it to be like when I'm working with CloudFormation, a lot of times, like if there is something that's like RDS, I'll have that as a separate stack. And then I will cross-reference that item into another one. And the idea is that if I delete the upper layer stack or the other one, it won't take down the bucket under any circumstance. Or sometimes you just manually create them and you want to link them in. But the idea is that they're floating away from the rest of your stack, and that is just another way to make sure that you don't lose stuff that you don't want to lose based on misconfiguration. Now, of course, you can put in things into CDK to say don't delete this, but just as an extra measure, that might be a good idea. So I didn't do this in the original one, but what we should do is actually put that into practice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tear the stack down again. I know I keep tearing it down, but let's go back over to here into Gitpod if we can find it. And let's do a CDK destroy. Okay, and while that is going on, we'll wait to confirm it with a yes. We probably have to say yes. Yep, let's tear it down. I'm going to look that up. So how to import an S3 bucket into CDK. An existing. And so there's probably some way to do it. Let's just go to the CDK S3 bucket documentation. I've never done this before, but I'm just going to look it up and see if we can figure it out. So over here we have a lot of options. There's props, there's properties, there's methods. It'd probably be a method. That's what I would think. There's something like from bucket name, from bucket arn. I wonder if what that is. So this would create a bucket construct that represents that. From bucket name. Is that it? Yeah, I think that's what it is. So I think that's the way we can reference an existing bucket. So Christy was saying that the documentation in some areas is better than others. Here it's not telling us what it is, but it looks like we can reference it from bucket name or even the ARN itself. So both ways are pretty darn easy, but I think I'll try that from bucket name there and do that instead. So what I'm going to do is, now that that's all teared down, I'm going to go here and make a new function here called import bucket. And I'm going to say bucket name, string, S3, iBucket. I know I said I'd just make this one really easy, but I don't know. I just want to make sure I'm showing you the best way to do stuff here. This is a period, apparently. And so let's see, it'll be constant bucket equals new S3 bucket dot from. Oh, it's the first thing that shows up. Cool. And then what do we need to put in it? Will it tell us? It needs the bucket name. Okay, and so here we'll just put bucket name. The ID is not there. What else does it want? Maybe this. Sometimes they need this to like reference the current scope or stack in particular. You'll see this often where we're doing this, and so this would be referring to the stack, right? This is this here is CDK stack. So I think originally my original implementation, I was passing stack in manually, so that was even more clear. But I'm pretty sure that's what that is. So we'll put this in the front here. If we hover over, it says construct, which is the stack. The next one is an ID, which is string, and then the third one's the bucket name. Why does it need an ID? Oh, it's the logical name, right? So here we just call it thumbing bucket again. I'm gonna actually call it, it's technically assets bucket now that I think about it, but let's call it assets bucket. I'm gonna change this one over as well. Because again, like we have this stack that's using the assets bucket, but there could be other serverless workflows that we're doing stuff with, and so it makes sense to name that one more uniquely. Still, it's not liking what I'm doing. The new expression target for construct implicitly any. So maybe we're not doing new, we're just doing S3 like that, because we're calling a static function. So that makes a lot more sense. And then we'll go ahead and return the bucket. And so now we can just import the bucket instead of creating it. So I'll go up here and, or wherever we call this, and instead of this, we're going to do an import. Now we could create another stack here. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and manually create that bucket, and we'll manage it manually. So I'll go here and then do this. We'll say assets.crutter.com, and yeah, this looks all fine. So we'll go ahead and do that. And that's the way I want to do it, because I think that's going to be better for us down the road here. I'll close this tab out. And so now that we're referencing that import bucket, let's see if that actually works. So we'll do a Docker deploy, a CDK deploy. And we'll type in Y for yes. And hopefully that just works. The major question is, what will happen if we tear down our stack? Because we want that bucket to stay in place no matter what. So again, we could have added something to CDK to say have that bucket persist, but then the problem is that if we run it again, it already exists. I'm not sure how we work with the code there. So maybe there's a better way to do it, but I know this is a safe way to do it, and it's still not a bad practice. But we'll wait here a little bit. I'll be back here in a second, okay? All right, so that is now done. And so let's take a look here at what it's done. So we'll go back over to CloudFormation and just make sure that it's worked. So we go here and we go to our events, and how did it handle the bucket? Let's go here to events and take a look. Because in CloudFormation, you can actually import things into the stack, and that's what I'm wondering if that's what it's doing. See where it says import resources into the stack. So has it been imported, or is it just being referenced? So we do see the assets bucket there, which is great. So clearly it is shown as a resource in the stack. We'll go over to over to S3. Well, there's nothing to see actually at S3. We know that bucket is there. Well, we'll take a look anyway. So we'll go here and just bump down the font and give this a refresh. And yeah, it's there. That's great. And so what I'm going to do is go back over here, and I'm going to destroy. And I want to see again if it's going to keep that bucket or leave it. Because if it's imported to the stack, then CloudFormation is managing it, and now it could end up tearing it down. And that's not what I want to happen. And so we can see what's happening. It says delete in progress for here, the Lambda, the role. It doesn't look like it's deleting the bucket. It's leaving it in place. And so I think that's what it's doing. But we'll wait a moment for it to finish, okay? All right, so it's done. And we'll go back over here and we will check. And our bucket's still there. So yeah, I think I prefer that we do the import over the create, but it's great to know that we know how to do a create. Now that we have that bucket, we can trigger some stuff here. So we need to create a couple folders. We actually don't need to make these folders. They will automatically be created once we do a post or a put. But I'm going to go ahead and create another one here, and this will be original. This one will be processed. So I need an image, and I like using data when I can. So I go here and I just type in data, Star Trek, because we're inputting data. So let's use data. And so I just need kind of a large image because we are going to be resizing this. So I'm just dragging it onto my desktop. I'm looking for JPEG. This is giving me like a WebP. It might still work, but just because I don't want to fiddle with web JPs right now, I'm going to right click to save. And then I'm just going to choose a different format. I'm going to say data.jpg. I think that should work. If it doesn't, we'll find out. But what I'll do is I'll just get my Explorer open here. And we'll make our way to the desktop. And I don't have a whole lot on my desktop, but in here we have data somewhere, right? Data right there. And I think that should still work. Just double click that, make sure it works. Yep, shows data. It's a JPG. And so what we'll do, actually, what are the dimensions on this? We'll go here to properties. And it says the dimensions are, okay, so because I want to do 512 by 512 or something smaller, so I just want to make sure that it's small enough for us to, or big enough for us to do something with. So that is the image there. I'm going to go over here and drop it into the original. Okay. We'll go ahead and hit upload. Now we could write a CLI command, and maybe we will, but right now we'll just do that manually. So we'll go back over here, and let's take a look at that Lambda function actually triggered. So from the CloudFormation, we'll go into here, click through into the function. We'll give this a refresh. It should exist. Oh, it's not going to exist because we tore everything down. Duh. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go back here because we'll have to delete this. And maybe what we will do is actually write a CLI commands because we're going to probably do this quite a few times. And so we will go and do something. The something that we're going to do is, redeploy our stack. Okay, so we'll go over here to get pod, wherever it is. Close that tab out. We'll say CDK deploy. We'll give it a minute. We'll say yes, and we'll go back over here. And we'll wait for that to deploy. While that's waiting, we can go implement some stuff here. So in our serverless bin directory, we will go here and we need a couple scripts. We need one to upload an image. So we'll just say like upload, and then we'll have one called clear. And so here, what I want to do is I want to use the CLI. So AWS CLI S3, we'll go here. It's weird, there's S3 and then there's S3 API. There's two of them. And I don't know why there's two, but it's just how it is. And I think both work, but I like using the one that's a bit more standard. So what we want to do is we want to upload a file, so technically copy, I suppose. Would that do it? Copies the local file to S3 object to another location, locally or in S3. Yeah, so that's something that we can do. So I'll go back over here. I'm pretty sure I know this command. It's AWS S3 copy, and then the path of where you want it to go, and then where we want the file to be. So here, this is going to be, for me, it's going to be assets.crutter.com. And maybe what I'll do is I'll set up my domain name so I don't have to figure that out constantly. So I'm going to go here and just type in env, or it's going to be export domain name equals crutter.com. And then I'll just say gpenv domain name equals crutter.com. I'm surprised we haven't done that somewhere yet. Maybe we have, and I'm just remaking environment variables there. But we'll go here and put domain name in like that. And then I'll just wrap that in quotations. And then we need the local file, which would be the absolute path. I don't know if we have to do this. I'll try to just do the file here. And I'll drop data into here. So where are you, data? We'll go here. And we'll bring in data into files here, files. Oops. New folder, we'll call that files. And we'll bring in data. We might want to have a few different types of files as well for testing, but for this purpose, this will be sufficient for now. And so in here, we want to have its absolute path. So I'll go up here and We want to bring over some of our fun code that we've been using before. We just did this in Serverless for build. And so we'll just go ahead and grab this here, and I will go back over to the upload and we'll paste this in. I'll also go ahead and grab this line up here and paste that into our upload here. And so we get absolute path, serverless path, which is fine. And then from the serverless path here, we'll get upload file path, or just data file. Okay, and so be that serverless path, and then we'll just say files data.jpg, and then we will place that in there like data file path. And so hopefully that works. We'll go back over here and take a look and see if our deploy is finished. It was down here. It's done deploying. Let's see if we can upload this file. So I'll go here and just do a chmod on this. U+X. This will be bin serverless. I'm really getting sick of that file there. It shouldn't be there. I thought I updated my script. You know what? I must have done it actually somewhere else. It must have been while I was updating this. But here you're supposed to be putting, you're supposed to be seeding into workspace. We do this up here so that this AWS CLI does not download in the major project and we don't end up committing this by accident. But I'm going to go here and just do that now. So we'll do that. And then we'll grab this here and then go down below here and paste it in as such. Okay. And then that'll be a lot less annoying. And I'll just delete this here so I don't forget about it later. Yep. Okay. So back down below here, serverless upload. And I'm going to do that on the other one as well for clear so I don't have to figure it out later. All right. And let's see if that works. Bin serverless upload. Enter. It says it's uploaded it. Let's go take a look here and check S3. I don't see any files there. So maybe it didn't upload to that folder. Oh, it uploaded to data. I guess the problem is we did not specify the correct folder. So we'll go here. And then we'll go back. And we will then just adjust that script. We'll go to upload here. And this one is going to be / avatar original. I don't even think I made those folders right, did I? I just put them top level, didn't I? We'll close. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and delete these folders because they're not supposed to be top level. They're supposed to be in a folder called avatar. And we could call it avatar or avatars. What did I call it in the code or in our environment variable file? Avatar. I kind of feel like I should have called it avatars because it's containing a bunch of avatars. I'm going to do that right now. I don't like that. So I'll go ahead and do that and change that. And I know that seems like a nitpick, but I think it's very important that we stick to a naming convention. And so I'm going to go here and do that deploy again down below. CDK deploy. And so that will roll out those nvars, assuming that it's realized that something has changed. We still have more to do here, so it's not a big deal while we're doing this deploy. And that's proceeding to deploy, so that's fine. I thought we'd have to hit yes there, but I guess it's okay. So I'm going to go back over to our build here, and not our build, but our upload clearly is working. Now it's important that this path is correct, so I'll just go here and do that. I want to also make a list for fun, so we'll go here and say ls, and then we can also list out the contents of these files. I just figured if we're learning how to do stuff, we should do as much AWS CLI as we can here. So ls is what's going to print the contents of our bucket. So I'm just going to hit enter here. and it's going to list all the buckets, but I want to list the contents of a bucket. Let's just type in AWS here, and we'll have to do it in the CLI one because I guess that flag is not on all of them. And if I do S3, I want to see the contents of a bucket. So what do we have? LS. List contents of a bucket S3. CLI. I don't know. Maybe we won't do this one because I think the way if we really wanted to work, we'd use the CDK or SDK for that, and I just don't feel like doing that to that degree. I was just thinking like even formatting it wouldn't be that nice, so I guess we're not going to worry about that for now. I'm just going to get out of that, and we're going to go and upload that file. So let's just make sure that it doesn't exist. Oh yeah, we're going to write our clear. So we have this one. We're going to copy the contents here. Hit paste, and we want to remove the file. It's probably just RM. Let's go back here. I want to get to S3. And do we have a remove command? We do. So I think all we have to do for that is just type RM and then just give it the path that we want it to delete. So here for clear, we're just going to do this and say remove. And that would be on the original. The assumption also is that it would probably be removed from here as well. So we go here and then do data.jpg. And then this one would be data.png, assuming like we want to convert them over to PNGs. I think that's what it does by default. I actually don't want to use PNGs, I want to use JPGs because those are a lot more efficient. But for now, I think it's set as that. So we'll go ahead here and check out our bucket, or our bucket, and see what we have. So nothing is in there yet. We have yet to upload anything. Let's go ahead and trigger an upload in Gitpod. So we'll go over here and we'll say upload. Great. We'll go back over here. We'll refresh. Avatars, original. Great. We'll see if there's actually an event notification on this bucket. So we'll go back to our buckets here. We will check out assets credit. We'll go to properties. We will scroll on down and actually did add it to the S3 event notifications, which is nice. It's showing that it's doing a put. The question is it triggering a put or a post? That's what's important, because if it's a post, then it might not show up. But we'll go over here and take a look if it actually went into the other folder. It does not look like it did because it just shows original, so maybe it's a post and not a put. We'll go over to our functions here. We'll refresh. It's probably this one up here. We're looking for that S3 incoming event. We're going to double check. It's showing on assets.credit. That is the correct domain there. Notice that it's looking at avatars original, so our event notification propagated. Again, you should always check all these things. It'll save you so much time if you run through them every single time. We want to see what it logged out, so we'll go to monitor and we'll go to CloudWatch logs and we'll see if it actually triggered it, because if it's triggering on a post and not a put, we'd never see it. We don't get this data in CloudTrail because we would have to turn on data events, which is expensive. So we can't use CloudTrail to see if it's actually been triggered or not. We'll go over here and notice that there is nothing in the bucket. Now, sometimes it takes a few seconds for things to show up, or in the Lambda function. So I'm thinking that it's not triggering because we used a put, but we're actually supposed to be watching on a post. So what I'm going to do is go back over to our code, and we'll have to change that from a put to a post. So going down below here, and I'm not trying to put code traps in here. This is just me forgetting and having something that was working. So, apologies for that, but it's okay. This is how it goes. So over here we have put somewhere. So I'm going to just search for put. And instead of a put, we're going to make it a post. And so we'll go here and we'll go ahead and redeploy. So we'll say bin, or not bin, we'll go down here and say CDK deploy. And instead of on the put, we'll try it on the post, and maybe our lives will be a lot easier. I'm just seeing if it wants me to confirm anything, so I'm just waiting here. Let's creating the change set. And it's just running. So I'll see you back here in a moment, okay? That was fast, less than a second for that to finish. We'll go back over here. We'll give it a refresh here and see what this looks like. So that's fine. I'm gonna go check the S3 bucket on the properties. I'm just curious what it did there. So yep, it's showing post now, so that's good. We'll go back over to our Lambda. We'll click on our S3 event, noticing that it's watching on put here, but we said it's supposed to be on post. So I'm just refreshing it to make sure that it's post. It is post, so we are okay. Let's go ahead and trigger that again. We will run our clear command and see if that clears things up. This is on this tab here, I believe. So we'll type in clear. See if that works. It'll probably fail on the second one. There's nothing to delete there. Let's confirm that this is working. So we'll go over to objects. We'll check our avatars, original, and there should be no files in here. So we are in, looks like this is a file and not a folder. Interesting. Yeah, so that made a file. I'm not sure why, but that's not what we want. We want it actually to be called data.jpg. So maybe that's another reason why our thing was not working, is that it actually didn't make a folder, it made a file. That's interesting. Let's go over here and take a look at our code and see what could have caused that. So if we go over here to our upload, oh, we forgot to put the name on it. Okay. So we'll say JPG. So that could have been the reason why it was not working, but you know, it probably should be a post versus put. Let's take a look difference. Post versus put S3. Okay, let's see what Stack Overflow has to say. Apart from the differences, when using a post, the response you get contains the object name. This is useful if you upload multiple objects. Also, for access, you get post and put differently, not allowing object modification, while only allowing creation. I mean, we only need to create, we don't need to update, so we really don't need to be doing a put, but it probably did work with the put before. Understand that when we change the method, like post or put, the event data could change, so that record information that we're writing in our Lambda might not work if it's different, but we'll take a look here and see what happens. So we'll go here and upload again, and this time it should upload to the correct directory. We will go back and check S3 and give this a refresh. And so now it should, well, we have originals folder, data folder. We'll go back here and see if we actually have a process folder. We don't. That's okay. We'll go back over to our log groups here. We'll refresh. This is the Lambda that should be triggering stuff. We did do a redeploy. No, we didn't. So for the post we did, but this should still be the same Lambda, so it should be the same group. Nothing there. We'll go back over to thumbing or this avatar here. We'll refresh. And so we have the trigger down below. We'll look at the details. It's on post now, so that's totally fine. And we'll go back to monitor. We'll go to view logs. Nothing. Okay, so CP is definitely working, but maybe when we do a copy, it's not doing a post, it's doing a put. So even though really we should be using a post, maybe put is what's supposed to work, and that original folder that I did there where I made a mistake is throwing it completely off. I apologize, but that's just how it goes. Let's go back here and change it back to a put. I know, it's crazy. We'll go here and change this back to a put. It's just because we can't see the event data. So, you know, I'm not going to turn CloudTrail on just for that. So we'll go here, we'll type in clear. We'll go here and deploy again. Luckily, this doesn't take too long, so this should be pretty quick. And I'll see you back here in a second, okay? All right, so let's take a look here. So we've changed the put back here. We'll go back over and make sure that those files are gone. They are gone. I'm just gonna go ahead and trigger that right away so that we can just get through this a bit quicker. We'll do the upload. We'll go back and check our S3 bucket. We'll refresh it here. We see the original. I'm not seeing the processed. Now that doesn't necessarily mean the Lambda is not being triggered, but let's go back here to the log groups and give this a refresh. And we're still not seeing anything. This is crazy. When I did this the first time, it was like smooth as butter. Didn't have any issues. We'll double check this here. We'll refresh this. Is this on the put or the post? This is now on the put. Totally fine. We will go over to monitor here. We will view logs again. It's not working. Okay. So let's just see if the Lambda is working. And the way we can do that is we can test the Lambda by giving it event data. Luckily, we saved event data over here, so we can just dump that in and modify it, and then we'll have something that may work. So in our app here, we list lambdas, process images, event JSON. We have event JSON data here. And notice here that we can just change some stuff. So we have this, which is the key. I think it's supposed to be like avatars original data JPEG. Okay. All this other stuff might not be great, but that's okay. And then also the bucket name is important. So we'll go here and call this assets.crutter.com, assets.crutter.com. This will be CA Central, so CA Central. For me anyway, for you, it's different. We have the put here. There's other stuff. I don't know if we really need all that other data, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and copy this and just see if this is one way that we can debug this. So trigger file, upload file, template. Yeah, I don't want a template here. So we'll go down below here. Actually, that probably would have been another way that we could have done a test. So here there's an S3 put. So maybe that's what we could have done. But I think it's going to be very similar to what I just did here. So we'll save that. Details, access denied. Why? Why did we get access denied? Okay, it might be some of the data. So let's go take a look here and look at some of the templates. Maybe one of these templates will help us out. Because it might pre-populate with our own data, right? Let's just run it, see if it works, test. Access denied. There are areas the 4K thing. So that's not very helpful. Interesting. Okay. All right, we could take a look here and see what the permissions are. I mean, we should have permissions to write and do stuff. So we go by action. Actually, did we even give this Lambda permission? That's a good question. So in our code, yeah, how would it know that it could write to S3? It probably doesn't have permission to do so, but we still would get an error, I would think. Maybe it just doesn't throw an error in the same way that we think. So let's go back to our code base here. Because down below, we end up giving it a bucket access policy here. And so maybe that's something that we can try to do. So let's go ahead and just implement that. Looks like we don't have all the code in here, but that's okay. So the first thing is that we want to create a policy for bucket access, not a bucket access policy, which is something else. So I'll go ahead and grab this line here. We'll go back over to here, and I'm going to go ahead and paste this in here. Okay, and then we actually need the function itself. So it looks like, again, I didn't copy and paste it in there, but it would be in the code. So if we go here to week 8 serverless CDK, and by the way, right now, you definitely don't want to copy the one that I wrote in there because obviously we've made so many modifications here. But if we go into the lib and in here, down below, I have a function in here called bucket policy. So we'll go ahead and grab that. And then we'll just paste it down here as a separate function. Okay, so we'll go ahead and paste that in. And we'll need to import IAM because it needs that. So we'll go up here. I'll just copy S3, IAM. I imagine it's going to be IAM. It did autocomplete, so we are in good shape. So that creates it. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's attached, right? So we've created a policy. We need to attach it to the actual role. So we'll go back over here to here, sorry. And Actually, I think it was right in here. I wrote it in here. Yeah, we'll attach it to the Lambda. Now, there's more than one way to attach policies, or at least the other one might be the way to do a bucket policy. But when I originally was implementing this, I ended up doing this bucket grant read on the Lambda this way in a put. And so I'm not sure which way I was supposed to do it, but that's the way that I did it. I guess a curious question is, what is this bucket policy allowing us to do? Get and put. Okay, so we'll stick with the get and put there. We'll go back over here, and I'm going to go ahead and do a CDK deploy. So yeah, all I'm trying to say there is that I'm not sure what these two do. And asking Chrissy, and she wasn't 100% sure either. It could just be an alternate syntax, or the other one could be for a bucket policy, but I didn't observe it, and I'm not really too worried about it. So we'll leave it out for now. And if that doesn't work, then we can put this in instead, remove the other one, and we'll find out. We'll go back over here. Wrong folder, we'll do CDK deploy. And see if that fixes our issues. I really thought this was going to be easy week. Didn't think we were going to have any hiccups. Oh well. I'll see you in a moment, okay? All right, so that's deployed again. What we'll do is go back here and take a look at the permissions. Okay, so we're under permissions here. I'm going to give this a hard refresh so we can see what we have access to. We'll go down below. We can see, I really don't like how they've done it this way, but here you can see we have access to this CRUDder, or this bucket with these actions. So maybe that was our problem. I'm going to go back over to here, and I'm going to go ahead and just delete those files there, or that file. And we will then upload again. And again, I think like we care more about a post than a put, but if this is doing a put, like the CP, then that's going to be important. This might change when we actually do the implementation and the application. We might have to change it back to a post, but we will find out as we go here. We'll give it a refresh. Not seeing anything here. Is the file in there? Yes. Avatar is original. Okay. Did this trigger anything? Please tell me it triggered something this time. We'll go to our logs here. Oh, great. We have our log streams. So that's good. This is the data that it's printing out. So here is the event record. And it's not printing out everything. So you can see that it's doing a put at least, and some of these other parameters are not expanded. That's totally fine, but we can see some of the event data. Here we console out more stuff. So we do assets CRUDder, avatars, original data as the source key. This is the destination bucket. The destination key is avatars, original data.js. That's not right, because it should be called process, not original, right? So that's already going to be wrong. Bucket assets CRUDder key, avatars, original JP, that's fine. Here we're getting an access denied 403. We shouldn't, because we have permissions. Unless that's an old one. Yeah, look, see here, we have one here and then a second one down here. So what I'm thinking is that this one might be old, but then down below here, the bucket you're attempting to access must be addressed using the specified endpoint. Please send all future requests to this endpoint. Interesting. Oh, but this one says example bucket. So that's that test one we did before, I think. Interesting. So I'm not sure if I trust this data here. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. But we will go look at our code, because there clearly is a mistake with our JavaScript implementation. So if we go into our index.js, again, I don't know how this worked fine for me before, and now I'm having issues. But over here, we're inputting the input name, folder input, and it should replace it with the destination output. So what I'm going to do here is add a bit of extra logging. So this event is not very useful. I'm going to go here and type in console log, and we'll say bucket name. So we have bucket name, or I'll just put them in caps. So dest bucket name. Well, we don't really need to console log those out, because we can just see what they are if we go check the Lambda. If we go to the Lambda, there will be under configuration the environment variables. And here the input is original. This one is process, avatars original. So if we go back over to here, it really should be replacing that information there. But it's not. which is interesting. So we can test this in isolate, our code here, to see if that works. But this would have our own permissions because we're running it with our local SDK. So the stuff that we're having issues is outside the scope of these 3 files. It really is this part here. So why? Why is it doing that? Interesting. So the source key here, let's go back over here. Oh, we deleted our logs. We'd have to run this again. Yeah, we'll run it again. We'll just go and do a clear, and then we'll do an upload. And we'll go back over here to CloudWatch logs. We'll give this a refresh. We'll wait a minute, okay? All right, let's take a look here. We'll refresh. Now our logs is not showing anything, but it worked at one point. Okay, interesting. Well, here's a question. Does AWS S3 CP use a put or post? This is something what I don't know now. So is it using put or post? Copy objects? It doesn't say. Does AWS S3 CP use post or put? Because when I was doing this originally, I was uploading via the CLI, and so that might be a put. So here it says the HTTP method for upload is upload files to S3 is put method and not post. So that's interesting. So it's suggesting that it is using put. Okay. Let's refresh here. Still no data. Let's close this tab out because I don't trust it. We'll go to monitor. We'll go to view logs. We'll see if the logs now all of a sudden show up. Because maybe the path changed or something when we did a redeploy or something. No, it's not showing anything. Wow, we are having a lot of trouble here. So folder input, process output. Let's go take a look at our bucket. We'll check its properties. We'll go down below here. We will check that it's put on avatar's original is the filter. So that is correct. It's linking to the destination here, so it's linking to here, so that is correct. This sucks. This should just work. It should have proper permissions now, which I do believe it does. I mean, the only thing I think of is like if we can get that test to work, let's go down here and drop below here and get the test that is incorrect. So we'll go here and do the S3 put. Now, I guess we did run 2 here and we saw 2 logs in there. So maybe that was the only one that actually was logging. Right, so this one failed. The bucket you're attempting to access must be addressed using the specified endpoint. That's totally fine because it's a bucket endpoint that doesn't exist. But if we go over to CloudWatch logs, now we get a log. Right, so that makes sense. That one totally makes sense here. So we'll delete that. And I don't know, all I can think of is we should mock the data fully to get that to work. So we'll go to test here, and then we will drop down this to be S3 put. And I'm going to copy the whole thing. I'm pretty certain that this thing is identical to the other one. Let's go here and paste that in. Looks pretty darn similar. And I'm just going to update all this stuff here. So assets.crutter.com. I don't know what the principal ID is supposed to be here. I don't know if any of that matters. Because it should just read the data. It shouldn't interpret any of that, right? And before we had this issue because of the access denied, maybe we won't have that now. So I'll go here and I will test this. It failed. Client send is not a function. I'm not sure what they're talking about. We'll refresh this. We'll take a look at the error out here. So it looks like it actually is returning data now, which is good. I mean, it's not triggering from our notification, which is frustrating, but we are seeing something a little bit better. Notice it's saying assets, CRUD, avatar, original JPG. The destination is not being changed to where we want it to be. So maybe there's something that is not working correctly for that replace function. Replace, not working, JS. So avatar is original. Oh boy. Let's go into inspector here. We're just going to use JavaScript here for a second. I need to see what's wrong with that replace function because that's definitely going to be something that is causing this issue. We're going to go over to our S3 image processing or our index.js. And so this is the line that I'm kind of annoyed with. So for our folder input and output, we have very specific things, and we have the source key here. So what is the source key? The source key is this. So go here and type in constant source key and then this. Okay, then the other part of this is the input folder and output folder. So I'll go back over to here, and these are going to be folder input, folder output. So folder input, this will be whatever it's supposed to be. So we'll go to our configuration here, and I will grab this part. It could be because it's starting with a /. That might be the reason why it's not matching properly. That is exactly why it's not matching properly. For sure, that's why. Frustrating. Okay, so I guess the question is, are we supposed to have that trailing /? Because in the other places, we don't necessarily have that. That might also be the reason why our trigger is not working, is because maybe we put that / in there. It's not supposed to be in there. So that might solve two of our problems. Let's go over to S3 and double check. So see, we have that /. Let's create an event notification. Notice that it doesn't show an example with the /, because then you know what it would be. It would actually expect the file name to have /. I've seen this before where it's like //. So that is probably what our problem is that /. Let's take that out. Okay. But the only reason I know that is because I've seen files before that had a / in my history and like just working with S3. And so I'm thinking that's the mistake I made there. So I really do think that this deploy is going to fix it. So we'll just give it a moment for that to occur. So I'll see you back here in a moment, okay? All right, so we've updated our deployment here. I'm gonna make sure I clear these out, and I just have my fingers crossed here that this is going to work. So we'll go ahead and do an upload, and we will go back to our S3 bucket here, just over here, and I'm gonna click into avatars. And so original is still there. Well, it's not what I was hoping for, but we'll go back over to our logs. But we do have more than one, so that is probably a good indicator. 1315 looks like it's the newer one. We'll open that up. And so we have avatars, original data, JPG. The destination is being changed. I'm going to bump that up. I'm so sorry how small that is, but you can see that that is now updating correctly. We are still getting an error where it says client.send is not a function, and we are seeing data. So it looks like we just have some kind of problem with our code. So it says in here the upload process image on line 45, client.send. let's go back to our code and take a look at what the problem is. So we'll go over here into our index. I don't see a client.send in here, so if it is, it must be in this file here. Do we have a send? We do, and because that's the new syntax for using it, is to do this .send. What it's saying is that it doesn't know what the client is. So it's possible that we did not pass the client in somewhere here. We'll go back over here. And yeah, so we have the client in the get original, but for uploading, we would need the client as well. So probably it's just missing here. It's probably just a bug on the code. Yeah, right there. But in the test, we probably have it. We do. So it's just an issue with this Lambda code. So what we'll need to do is to re-upload that. We don't obviously have to do npm install again and remove sharp. We'll just go ahead and do our deploy. And so maybe this time around, it will be in good shape. So I'll see you back here when this is done deploying. And if you have to hit yes, just hit yes, okay? All right, so we've updated our deployment there. And so hopefully we fixed that one little problem with our code. Of course, it'd be better if we did more testing, but it's very hard to do some types of testing. Some of that would be fixable, but anyway, what we'll do is go ahead and go back to our place over here. We will type in clear. We will go ahead and upload that again. And so now I think this is going to work. So we will go and just check our S3 bucket. We'll refresh. That file we deleted a moment ago. We have a process folder. We have a JPG over here. So I think originally I had PNG and then I switched out to JPG to make sure that it works. So we probably are in good shape for that. But the other part is that it could still be a PNG, but just having the JPG name because we don't actually end up changing that extension. So if we go over into here, notice that it's actually setting it as a PNG, not a JPG, but it's showing it as a JPG. Let's go ahead and download that. And by the way, we can go to CloudWatch here and see that if it was successful or not. Of course it was, but we'll go here and you can see it shows the data, a little bit of the data here and some other information, and that is working. But we'll come back over here. And the question is like, what is this type of file? So if we go ahead and download it. I just want to download it. Let's open it up. Download. I'm wondering if I can look at this here. So it looks like it's actually downloading as a PNG, even though the file name is JPG. So that's kind of a bit of a problem. We really don't want it to be an extension that it's not supposed to be. So what we'll do here is modify this and take off that extension. Let's go here and go over to ChatGPT and just ask very quickly so I don't have to figure it out. Where are you, ChatGPT? You should let me remove extension, file extension from string JavaScript. Yeah, that'd probably be the easiest way. Node.js. I should have said that because we can use FSA. Yeah, path, string, file name. Okay, remove file extension using Node.js from a string. But that might not give us the path, so that's also another problem. So, I mean, we can do that, but let's take a look here. So in our code here, we change the name of it before it even gets in there, eh? So we'll go into our index.js, and so we're not reliant on this to do the translation. We are doing the translation over here where we do the replace. So we don't really need to replace it in place. What we can do is just get the name of the file and take off the extension. So we'll go over here back to ChatGPT. Where does it keep on going? It's over here. And we can require path. That's probably a good idea. So we'll put that in here. And we will use the parse to get the name like that. So we'll go down below here. And I want to grab the original name. So that would be in the avatar folder here. Folder input. Source key. So we can go source key here. And that way we can just grab its name, file name. And then we can have the destination like this. So we would say interpolation is backticks like that, and then curly doubles like that, and then we'll say source for just singles. Folder output, / file name, and then now it'd be PNG. And so we'll just do this again here, file name. And so that should give us the correct destination. So we'll give that a go and see if that fixes our problem. Oh, I didn't want to necessarily do that. We'll just clear that out. We'll do a deploy up, and I'll be back here when this is done, okay? All right, let's go take a look and see if we get better results here. So, and technically the other one is going to be PNG. So if we go back over to our scripts down below, our cleanup scripts, it actually won't work properly because one is, unless it is clearing out the PNG, but if we go back to our bin directory here and we take a look at serverless into our clear, it's doing PNG. So that JPG might be still in the other one there. So we'll go and check that folder manually. In here, processed, yeah, see, so it's still there. Again, I do want to use JPEGs, but let's just make sure that this works correctly, and then we're ruling out these extension file issues. When we're passing the file over, we're probably not going to pass in names like data. They'll probably be based on something like the UUID of the user, so that that way we'll just have one there. Though we are running into doing, well, I guess it's still puts, but if we're doing posts, that'd be a different question there. Anyway, let's go take a look here and see what happens when we run that again. So we'll go up here, we'll do an upload, and then we'll make our way over to CloudWatch because that's what we're mostly interested in here. We'll go back and look at the latest run. So I believe that's the latest run. We'll go here. And what I want to observe is that it's setting it correctly. So it is making it PNG here, and that's what I wanted. And so now that means that it will be in PNG. But I just said I want it to be JPEG. So what we'll do is we will go back here and we'll type in clear, and we will change this to JPEG. And we'll go into our image processing here and we will change this to JPEG. And I'm just going to make sure that's right. Content type for JPEG is what? There, it's that one. Okay, good. And I just want to make sure that's switched over to JPEG here. It's this that processes the image. And apparently I don't even have that in there. So let's go take a look at Sharp.js. And you can do a lot with this this library. It's pretty good. But we want different formats. So let's just go and take a look at how to use it. Okay, just show me how to use it. Format. Great documentation, eh? Resize. And there's a lot of things we can do to try to make it a little bit more intelligent, but I'm just trying to figure out how we output to JPEG, to format JPEG. So we'll just take that explicitly there, and we'll go back over to Gitpod. Oh, it's PNG right here. That's interesting. That's just PNG. Why wouldn't there just be one JPEG? Image operations. I'm looking to see where that function comes from. Oh yeah, so to format, and then we could just say JPEG here. And so the thing with JPEG is you might want to change the quality of it. By default, it's going to 80, which is totally fine. But you know, JPEGs are going to be a lot more efficient than PNGs because JPEGs can be is for more richer images, and avatars are generally that case. There is also WebP, which is a great format. I just don't like it, but I guess we should probably be using WebP. So we say WebP versus JPEG, and then sometimes you have to have fallbacks for it, so it's kind of frustrating. So what's the difference between that? Both files have compressed images to make them easier to share. However, WebP is generally smaller than a traditional JPEG. So JPG fallback is the part that I don't like. So as an image format, in the above example, the visual difference are nearly intersectable, but the JPEG version on the left weighs in at 56.7, and the WebP is 38 kilobytes, so it's a lot smaller. Converting your images to WebP, converting images to WebP with Node, using WebP in HTML. And so notice here that they have to have like a fallback to JPG. So you still have to generate a JPG image. And so it's up to you. Do you want to have that better performance or stuff like that? Or do we generate out both? You know, what we can do here, and it will technically increase our storage size, but then we'll have better performance in terms of that. I'm going to just do both. So here we'll do WebPG. I don't know. Maybe we'll just do JPEG. I'm thinking about it, but my point is that you probably want both, but again, there's the trade-off of file size. So, like, do we want to pay for storage, but maybe that storage is negligible, and our users will get faster performance, or is it worth shaving off 10 to 15 kilobytes? But you know, if you're trying to service people with lower internet access, then trying to squeeze out everything out of that might matter. But anyway, we'll leave it for JPEG for now. And so I think that's all we need to fix that code there. And so we'll go ahead and just run it clear if we've yet to do so. And we'll change that over to JPEG. And we'll do CDK deploy. We'll deploy that again. I'll be back here in a moment, okay? All right, so that is now been deployed. And what we'll do is make sure our bucket is empty. I know we're doing a lot of stuff around this bucket, but just want to make sure we get it right. And I'll go back over here. And avatars, etc. here. Okay, so it's empty, so that's good. And we'll now go ahead and run that over here. So say upload. And so what I want to see outputted here is the JPEG with no errors. So we'll go into here, processed, still says PNG. That's not right. Let's go back to our code. Maybe I forgot to swap something out. Maybe we just wrote in PNG manually somewhere at the index level here. Yeah, we did. Okay, so minor issue. We'll go ahead and delete that. We'll just go ahead and do a deploy. I'll do a clear here. We will go back over to here and just manually delete that file out. And we'll do another deploy, and I'll see you back here in a moment, okay? All right, so we were just doing a deploy there. That should have finished. That deploy, I think so. And so if I was to, oh, did not mean to do that. And is that my Git pod? Frig. We'll just do this. Dashboard. And I'll just reopen that. That's frustrating. And so I'll reopen my Git pod there. Go back down below here. I'll give it a second here. And I believe we did a deploy. I'm going to go ahead and do an upload again. I just can't remember if I did deploy last there. And so we'll go back here. We will go into our process folder, which should exist. Data.jpg. So now we are in better shape. So that is going pretty good. Let's go back here and finish up our implementation for our serverless pipeline. So we'll go up here. Into our thumbing serverless file. This is that file here on the left-hand side. And so we've created our bucket. We've created our Lambda. Now we just need to send data on the way out, which is our notification. And we will go and check that out in the journaling here. So what we need is to create our SNS topic, our subscription, and our SNS notification. So this is not really exciting code, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy this in. So we'll need this line here, which is the import statement. Let's bring this over here for a second. So we need this import statement for the topic. We need this for the notifications, which we already have from before. Yep. And so we'll go ahead and create that topic. The copy paste doesn't always work properly, but we'll go ahead there. Did it take out my, yes it did. Of course it did. Freaking copy paste. Paste. And so we have our create SNS topic there. Then we want to create our SNS subscription. And then after that, we want to create the policy. So we need that as well. And then we need to attach that policy. We will need to create the topics. We'll grab that here, paste this down below. We'll go to the next one for the subscription, paste that down below. We will go to the next one here for the notification, paste that down below. We need to give it permission. That's not in this file here. It's in the actual code here. So go back to the Cruder app, into here, into this file. Go, into the lib directory here, into this file. We'll scroll on down and we'll grab the create SNS policy, publish policy here. And we'll go ahead and paste that in. And then I'll just fix my formatting. So this should be indented. Whoops. I hate copy and pasting this. It just does not work correctly at all. Okay, paste it in, because like it'll undo like other steps that I never did. So we'll go here. I will select these lines manually, I guess. And I will indent manually. I'll bring this one back. And so there's nothing super exciting going on here. The idea is that we create a topic. We'll call this thumbing topic. And then it passes the topic name, which is a bit nice to have that more human readable. Here, it's going to create a subscription. So topics have subscriptions. You can subscribe to email, to endpoints, to, I think, text messages. So with a topic, you always have that. Here, it's expecting to know what... couldn't find subscriptions. So we need to import that as well. So that's a separate thing. I think it's like SNS subscriptions. We'll call that subscriptions. And so it will create the subscription, and then we need to create the trigger, the destination to connect to it. And that's going to listen on the put as well. So when the Lambda puts it into the other place, it will do that. We'll go up here and organize this so it's a little bit more neat. So instead of having these here like that, we'll do that. We'll take our policies, put that together. We'll bring this up here. This is the topic and the subscription. Seems like we're missing something here, which is the, notice we have like create to Lambda notification. I'm just going to go back to our code here. We're missing one. We're missing this. Okay, so right, so create our Lambda, create SNS and subscription, or topic and subscription. Add destination, add trigger and destination. I mean, it's add our S3 event notifications. Create policies, attach policies for permission. Okay. Now, what's interesting is that we've created a policy to publish for SNS. But the thing is, for the Lambda, we don't need that because it's not going to need permission, because what's going to actually push it to the SNS is not the Lambda, but the when it goes back in the process. So I think I was just kind of like turning my brain off here, and I just put code in here that doesn't matter. So we actually don't need these two. So I'm going to comment them out for the time being, and we'll just see if that's true or not. So this is, well, I mean, we need create S3 SNS notification, but we don't need to have this. So I'll comment it out just in case we want to bring it back, and it's not bad to have this code hanging around. And so what we'll do is go ahead, we'll type in clear. We might as well clear out our uploads there. And we'll go ahead and deploy this and see if this works. So I'll be back here in a moment when this deploys. Well, let's see if it makes sure this doesn't fail, since we did change quite a bit of code. And it did fail for some reason. So what is its problem? URL must start with http:// or that. So let's go look at our env here. And that's our problem. So we'll go here and type in https:// https:// we'll go ahead and hit up. And we'll make sure this works. There we go. I'll see you back here in a moment, okay? So it seems our code has failed for some reason. Let's scroll up here and see what the problem is. I'm actually kind of surprised it failed. Failed to deploy from custom resource when calling bucket notification operation. Same ID used for multiple configurations. ID must be unique. So it's having an issue there about something being repeated. So we will just zoom out here for a second, because we can see it over here, because this all has to do with knowing how CloudFormation works. We'll go into our event data. We'll scroll on down. It'll tell us the problem here. It's on the asset bucket notifications. Received response, message returned, an error occurred when calling the put bucket notification configuration. Same ID used for multiple configurations. Seems like we might have repeated something by accident. We'll go back over here and we'll scroll on down, because it looks like we're repeating this twice. So I copied the wrong one. We'll go back over here. And so what we wanted was this one here, not the other one. That makes sense. I'll go ahead, paste this in. We will save. We will attempt another deploy. And hopefully that resolves that issue there. So we'll just give it a moment. And I'll see you back here in a bit, okay? Well, and just make sure you just hit the confirm if it needs to confirm, and we'll be back here in a moment, okay? All right, that deploy is done. Let's go take a look here. Just refresh our stack. It is created. Let's go see if the resources were created. So We'll go over to our Lambda, and now we should notice a destination hooked up. And so here the destination is, I mean, I guess it doesn't really need a destination because it's going to pick it up on the actual put, because the put is happening within this Lambda. That's what's happening. So I suppose it doesn't have to do it that way. So never mind. We don't actually would see a destination on that. Let's make our way over to S3 and make sure that under this actual bucket here, if we go back up here and we go properties, that it sets out the other S3 event notification. And so we can see original process goes to SNS topic. Let's go check out that SNS topic. And here we can see that is the case. Now we named that topic Crutter Assets. We probably should have called it Crutter Avatars or Thumbs, because we could end up having other ones triggering on different folders, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Notice it says pending confirmation, because in order to confirm it, we could hit confirm subscription here and enter the subscription URL. Can I just do that? No, because it could be sending data over to our endpoint and we'll have to confirm it. So in order to complete this, we'll have to finish the implementation. But the point is that when you create a subscription here, you choose a protocol, right? So HTTP, HTTPS, Lambda, stuff like that. And so we've chosen HTTP or HTTPS. And the idea is that we need to confirm it that way. Again, if we decide to keep using this method of integration, technically our Lambda could write to our database. So we don't necessarily need to send it out through SNS. And so we might change the way this works. But for now, I'm going to leave it like this. Okay. So I think that is okay. And I would say that for this part of the implementation, we're done. Of course, we have to integrate it into the application. Since we're going to have this assets dot whatever, we are going to use CloudFront. Originally, I didn't want to use CloudFront. It just takes forever to spin up. If you make a mistake, we'll be waiting years and years. So I have to make sure that it's set up correctly. But I'm feeling that this is just the proper way for us to do it, and we're going to need it. So after this, we're going to look at setting up CloudFront. But I'll see you in the next video. I'm just going to go ahead and commit my code. So implement serverless pipeline. And we will manually set up CloudFront, but we'll talk about that in the next video. And I'll see you there. Ciao, ciao.